A big shout out and thank you to our featured sponsors. Special thanks to Jane Haas Photography for sharing your elegant space with the Nurtured Woman podcast. Elevate your online presence effortlessly with Jane Haas's personal brand photography. Don't settle for less. Book your transformational session today. Call 732-673-9893. Get your home summer ready with Bleaches NC. Is your carpet looking tired or stubborn stains and odors lingering? Let Bleaches NC IICRC certified specialists use advanced technology to give your carpets and upholstery a fresh, sanitized look. Safe for your family and pets, they'll make your home feel like new. Mention the Nurtured Woman podcast for 15% off your first cleaning. Call 984-51-GRIME or 984-514-7463 today. Looking to buy or sell your home in the Lake Norman area? Trust me, reach out to Kristen Dorninger. With years of local experience, Kristen makes the real estate process smooth and stress-free. Get personalized guidance whether you're buying your dream home or wanting to sell it for the best price. Call her today at 704-492-6573. Welcome to The Nurtured Woman, a podcast bringing you conversations from a wide range of guests, from medical and wellness practitioners to wine and culinary experts, fashion leaders, and other trusted field insiders. Join me, Michelle Droll, your guide, as we delve into topics that inspire you. Parenting a child with ADHD can feel overwhelming and lonely at times, but you're not alone. In today's conversation, we're continuing where we left off last week, breaking down what ADHD really looks like and offering real-world tools to help. Our guest, Brandie Burleson, is a licensed clinical services provider with years of experience helping kids, teens, and adults manage ADHD in practical, lasting ways. We'll also explore GeneSight testing, a fascinating DNA-based tool that helps identify which medications may be the best fit. Welcome back, Brandie.
Thank you.
Can you please refresh our memory about ADHD, what it is, and the different types?
ADHD is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. There are three prominent types. There's ADHD predominantly hyperactive, where you see a lot of fidgeting, you see running around, you see the inability to slow down and think through things. So hyperactive, a hyperactive child. And you have ADHD predominantly inattentive, which means trouble to focus or attuned to a task, forgetfulness, time warpedness, not understanding that there's time passing. And then you have ADHD combined. So you can have a child that can have both hyperactivity and inattentiveness. I didn't mention this in the first episode, but the symptoms have to be present before the age of 12. Even if you're working with an adult, they have to have had symptomology before the age of 12, and it has to impact a part of life, like a domain of life. So work, school, socially, within the family context, it has to affect it in a way that is detrimental to that relationship or that environment for themselves.
So it's not ADHD if it happens after the age of 12, did you say?
It can still be, because there are silent symptoms that can be present before the age of 12. But according to the diagnostic manual for therapists, it has to be present before the age of 12. So when we are actually assessing for ADHD, we will ask, is there a parent that can also fill out a form for you? Is there a teacher? Like if it's a student, if it's a child, we will want an assessment from a teacher or multiple teachers, because we're not just going to go based off of mom thinks that or dad thinks. We want a full picture to make sure that it qualifies for ADHD.
Okay. Where do we go with these longer-term strategies? We want to be able to manage ADHD.
Yes. So routine and structure, really, really important for an ADHD brain. You will hear me say an ADHD brain more often not, because I'm not going to say somebody with ADHD. I want it to be recognized that it is not the whole of the person. It is their brain. It is how their brain functions. So predictability, when you have routine and structure, and scaffolding, which means that a parent is there to help create that routine and structure or to implement or to make sure that that kid is staying attuned, it decreases anxiety. So there is anxiety present in an ADHD brain. And so anxiety is present. When you have routine and structure, it decreases anxiety.
Okay.
Other things like a reward system. A lot of times parents find it beneficial. It's like potty training. You have a sticker chart because that age child needs that. when you're working with an ADHD brained person, having some kind of reward develops the motivation to actually do the work at hand because they know there's going to be a reward. Now, I'm not talking about a reward a month later. I'm talking about having their favorite dinner because they were able to attune to their assignment after school, or, I don't want to say candy bar, but candy bar, a random candy bar that they can be working towards, or like at the end of the week, if they went to school willingly and it wasn't a struggle and they had 5 stars from going to school each day, they could go out for ice cream with parents. Some kind of reward gives them the motivation to do whatever is needing to be done. Chores, homework, across the board.
Okay. So you had said last episode, we really want to try to avoid that sugar cycle because that creates that dopamine rush. So a parent knows their child best. They know what's going to be an ideal reward for them. So use, I would assume, ice cream, sugar sparingly.
But at the same time, like, we can't just keep them from it either.
Sure.
Because then what you have is when they have the ability to get it themselves, they don't know how to regulate it. So we teach that alongside.
Okay.
Right? Other things like physical activity, exercise, it's especially if it's socially, it's an energy outlet. It helps to regulate the hormones in their system, the adrenaline, so that they can focus when they come back in. That's why chunking homework, where you have 10 minutes doing homework, 10 minutes of play, come back, 10 minutes of homework, is really beneficial. Diet and nutrition, anything that is an additive. ADHD used to have a component called ADD. And so I try to remember anything that has ADD at the beginning, like additives. It's not a great combination for an ADHD brain because it increases ADHD symptomology. So there's good bit of research out there with, red dye, things like that, sugar, anything that is added in.
Great that we know what to avoid. What should we eat?
Whole foods, things that are what I call long dopamine. So like healthy salads, healthy breads, healthy whole foods. When you go in a grocery store, instead of walking down the aisles, walk around the edge where your whole foods actually are. Fruits and vegetables. Fruit has sugar. It's still a dopamine hit, but it's not a strong dopamine where then you're going to have a big crash on the other side.
Okay, you want to avoid the crash. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Now, what about proteins or fats? Is there any evidence that you're aware of that eating increased protein could help to provide that dopamine that they need?
Yes. Well, and a lot of times proteins also have protein turns into sugar in the body. And so it does, it's just a longer process. So proteins, yes, we all need proteins. We all need healthy fats like avocados, eggs, things like that, milk, unless you're lactose intolerant. But
seeds too, right? Pumpkin seeds.
Yes. Very good for brain development. 2 others, mindfulness and relaxation. I call this being where your feet are planted. A kid with ADHD brain is 100 miles an hour. And so practicing mindfulness and the ability to see 5 things around you, hear 4 things around you, touch 3 things around you, that anytime that you can bring them back to the center of where they are, their brain can come along with it. But it has to be trained. You have to train the brain to do that. It doesn't naturally do that for humans, period. But when you're working with an ADHD brain, it takes a lot of training, hone that in and create that structure. And then lastly, games. Anytime that you can play games, card games, or where they have to think before they do, that is training the executive function part of the brain to slow down, create a plan, even if it's a quick plan, and then execute. That is training the brain to turn on the executive function part of the brain.
Will that stay with them then, or you have to continuously play the game? That has to be a part of life, is what you're saying.
Yes, it will stay with them, but the brain is trainable. And so even if it is a wiring issue or a miscommunication, over time, it becomes a part of what we do. Like it becomes a habit almost. If we have played enough games of like slowing down and thinking.
Certain kinds of games that are ideal?
I use several games in session with kids. Number one, it builds a therapeutic relationship. Any kind of card game or any kind of board game is really beneficial. Like, especially if it's a critical thinking game. There are some that are outside, and I call it in the danger zone, zonal proximal development. We want to keep them in the growth zone, not just their comfort zone, but the growth zone. But there are some games that are just too hard. And so sometimes I'll sit down with a client and they're like, they really struggle with the game.
Like Settlers Like Time.
Yes. Or like a logic game where they have to fit this beside this color, but it can't be beside that color. Really difficult for an ADHD brain. However, pushing up against that stress can teach them, okay, if I just try a little, like if I just think about this way instead, which is what we talk about in session, like that trains them to think, okay, so maybe there's a different way to look at it than just what I'm looking at. So games in general, really good across the board.
Coming right back. Don't go away. Expert cleaning you can trust. Is your carpet looking tired? Stains that won't budge? Smell not so pleasant? We've got you covered. At Bleaches NC, our IICRC certified specialists use state-of-the-art cleaning technology to remove dirt, stains, smells, and allergens from your carpets and upholstery, leaving them fresh, sanitized, and looking their very best. We take pride in long-lasting results with a meticulous approach that's safe for your family and pets. Exclusive offer, mention the Nurtured Woman podcast and save 15% on your first cleaning. Call 984-51-GRIME or 984-514-7463 to book your appointment today. That's Bleaches NC. Did you know that homes listed with the real estate agent sell faster and for more money than those sold by the owner? It's true. And when it comes to selling, no one works harder for you than Kristen Dorninger, a trusted real estate agent with Southern Homes of the Carolinas. She knows the Lake Norman market inside and out, and she's got the marketing, the strategy, and the negotiation skills to get your home sold for top dollar. If you're thinking of selling, don't just list it. Sell it smarter with Kristen. Call Kristen Dorninger today at 704-928-6573. Welcome back to The Nurtured Woman. Now let's dive back into our conversation. Brandie, what is the goal of your work with children in your coaching sessions?
Better life experience.
Okay.
Yeah, but also knowing that they have the tools to do this outside of session, teaching them that there are easier ways to do things and you can retrain your brain. Provides structure for the session, but also they can mimic that structure outside of the session, especially if a parent is present. A lot of times I'll have a parent present because I want to help them learn how to scaffold learning for their kid outside of coaching so that they can be the coach for their kid.
Okay.
Coaching long-term is awesome, but also we want to equip you to be able to do it without a coach being there every day.
Let's talk about what ADHD coaching is, what it does, what it involves, and how it works.
Sure. So I'll just use the way that I do coaching as an example. The first session, normally I will have kids come in and we will sit and we will play a get to know you game and take the pressure off. They may or may not know that they're there for ADHD coaching. I'll explain what a coach does, which is just coming alongside you, looking at the game of your life. Basically, if you think about basketball, like what's not working, how can we come up with tools and new plans or plays for you to reach the goals that you want to reach so that you can make the basket, so to speak. I use a lot of sports metaphors because I work with a lot of boys. And so they understand that a lot when it comes to how to move forward or how to set goals or what do they want to improve. And so over time, after the first session, we'll come up with a few ideas or goals that they're wanting to work on, and we'll create a plan, and then we'll work the plan and we'll check in on the plan. And as the plan shifts, we will shift to new goals, and or a parent can also throw out some goals like, hey, I want my kid to eat less sugar. Okay, so let's look at that. Let's look at what it is. I'll do a lot of teaching around the brain and the body. I want a kid and a parent to understand exactly what is happening in their brain and their body, because that knowledge is power for themselves. So that later on, when they find themselves in a dopamine seeking way, they're able to say, this is dopamine seeking. I want to do it different.
Okay. Question for you. Now, when you're coaching, are you in the trenches with them in terms of their everyday schoolwork?
Sometimes. Sometimes a kid will bring their schoolwork to the table. I like to see what is actually happening with that kid. See if they are daydreaming or if they're zoning out or if they're scared because they feel like they're not good at math. You know, really, what is that? What is going on? And then we'll create a plan from there. Most of the time, I don't do homework with kids, though, just because that kind of takes more of a content-based tutoring kind of thing, where coaching is literally just creating a plan for them to be successful not content-based, but overall brain function-based.
So you're looking at where their executive function lacks, and you're
Yes.
creating a plan to help address that.
Yes.
Okay. What can we expect in terms of improvement in executive functioning? What degree of improvement can we see?
If I were to ask my clients, they would say a degree out of 10, maybe a 6, 7. It depends on how long you work with a coach. I have some that I've worked with for 6 months. Some I've worked with for a year. It really just depends on the effort that the family, because this is not just an individual thing, especially with a kid. This is a family dynamic. And that's where my degree, my license in marriage and family therapy comes into place, because I see it through a systemic lens. How is this affecting the family? Husbands and wives, where one spouse has ADHD and the other does not, it is a big, big place of contention. And so I'm looking through it through a different kind of lens too than most ADHD coaches. I'm looking through the family lens. And so if the family is engaged and supportive of this kid that has an ADHD brain, then success rate is going to be really high. If you're expecting your kid to just do it and do it on their own, it's a little bit tricky. I also have talked with many a school administration about what certain kids in their school need. I was a teacher before I became a therapist, so I understand what it looks like in the classroom, the limitations of a school, but also micro shifts that they can make where PE might happen in the morning instead of the afternoon because we want to get their dopamine up first thing, right? Yeah, so they're exercising before they even start their academics, things like that.
And that stays with them, that dopamine high for a few
It does,
hours.
because it is a dense dopamine rather than the cheap dopamine of sugar or electronics or
So
things like that.
exercise in the morning.
Yes.
And
Very healthy.
what does exercise look like? Is it fast and they're really trying to get the cardio up? What are we talking about when we say exercise?
So I worked at a therapeutic boarding school for boys, and they would do what we call calisthenics. And it was very first thing, it was before they even ate breakfast, actually. And so they would stretch, and then they would do like jumping jacks or push-ups. It wasn't like going and running a mile. It was getting the blood pumping, but not exerting all of this energy where you're exhausted when you come back from it. It's literally stretching, push-ups, crunches, those kinds of things. And it was very beneficial for the guys that I worked with at that school.
So I wanted this episode to be about methods and strategies that families can use that is not medication, because neither one of us are equipped to talk about medication.
Yes.
It's not where either of our credentials are. But you do have some understanding and knowledge of a new gene site testing
Yes.
protocol that can help families identify what?
Yes. So gene site testing is a DNA-based type of assessment. So basically you would send in a cheek swab and they test your DNA against a whole host of psychotropic medications. So based on anxiety or depression or ADHD or autism or whatever kind of psychotropic medication that you might want tested against it. And what it does is it puts it in columns based off of your body's ability to metabolize the medication. And so you might have a green column with 4 different ADHD medications that person's DNA will metabolize with best. And then you'll have some in a yellow, and then you'll have some in a red. And so basically it just helps doctors prescribe medication that's appropriate for the DNA of that individual so that you're not running on a treadmill and falling off and then a roller coaster of a high and low of trying out different medications. It's just a more streamlined way of finding out what medication might work best based on the DNA of that individual.
Okay. Any new strategies on the horizon in addition to that you're aware of?
Yes. One that I do know a little bit about it's called neurofeedback. And that uses brainwaves and imaging to retrain the brain in real time. I've actually watched it done when I worked at the boys' school. And basically they have a couple electrodes attached to them and they're watching something on a screen. And the technician is adjusting the things on the screen to help rewire the brain at the same time that they're seeing the things on the screen.
Okay.
So that's one. And then This one's not new, cognitive behavioral therapy, but using it with children, especially around play therapy or working with them on emotional regulation and why they do what they do and their thoughts behind what they're doing, that really has helped children learn how to express their feelings and self-regulate and build their problem-solving skills and social awareness. And it's been really beneficial for a lot of kids.
Brandie, thank you so much for being with me here and giving us such an incredible understanding of ADHD.
You are absolutely welcome. It's been a joy.
Where can folks find you?
Sure. I am the owner of Hills and Valleys Family Coaching and Counseling. I am located in Cabarrus County, but I serve a variety of counties because I am willing to travel. I do not have a brick and mortar. I will meet with clients at parks, at coffee shops, or if I've met with them a couple of times outside of the home, then we may move to home-based. But you can find me online. You can also send in a contact form or reach out via text or phone call or email. I am readily available to chat with you about your family and your kid.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
All right.
You're welcome.
That wraps up today's conversation on ADHD. Huge thanks to Brandie Burleson for sharing her expertise and shedding light on long-term strategies that really work. Whether you're supporting someone with ADHD or living with it yourself, remember, small changes can add up to big progress. If this episode helped you, share it with a friend, and don't forget to check out our previous episode if you missed it. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time on The Nurtured Woman. Want to get your business in front of an engaged audience? Podcast ads boost brand awareness by 28%. That means more people remembering you. The Nurtured Woman podcast is the perfect place to share your message. We'll craft a custom ad and feature it in the middle of the show. Don't miss this chance to connect with our listeners in a meaningful way. Let's get your business heard. Reach out today to Michelle Droll at mdroll@lknconnect.com. A big thank you to our featured sponsor, Bleaches NC, your expert carpet and upholstery cleaning service. From stubborn stains to odors, they tackle it all with safe, effective solutions. Don't forget, mention the Nurtured Woman podcast for 15% off your first cleaning. Call 984-51-GRIME today. Another thank you to Kristen Dorninger. Buying a home is a huge decision, and Kristen is the realtor you want by your side. Professional, trustworthy, and genuinely invested in finding the right home for you. Kristen handled all the details and made the process seamless for my family. Whether you're buying or selling, Kristen is here to guide you every step of the way. Call Kristen Dorninger at 704-928-6573, agent with Southern Homes of the Carolinas.